Howdy, it's the second episode of the Coffee Lingo series. Today we have two topics to cover. The first one is gonna be about single origin coffees and blends. And the second one is the topic of coffee processing methods. So if you've ever gotten a bag of specialty coffee, you might have seen on it that it says this is a single origin coffee from Brazil, and then it's gonna tell you a region and might even tell you a farm or the name of the farmer. And you might be wondering, oh, what does this mean, right? So single origin in the coffee industry can mean many things, right? Some companies use the term single origin and they would only describe the country of origin and that's it. Other coffee roasters would take even the name of the farm or the name of the farmer, right? So it all depends on the coffee roaster or the importing company. Let's put it this way. A single origin coffee is a very broad term, right? It could mean that a coffee is from a single country, which would mean that that coffee is a blend of coffees from different regions within that country. But we could also narrow it down. So it could mean that it's a coffee from a single region, which would mean it's a blend of coffees grown within that region. We could go even further and we could have a single farm coffee, which would mean a blend of coffees grown on a single farm. And then we could take it even a step further and say we have a micro lot of coffee, which is a coffee from a specific lot on a single farm. So you see, you can go as deep as you want to go to maybe even a nano lot, which is literally a couple of trees on a specific farm, right? So it all depends how narrow you want to go. Most good specialty coffee roasters name the country of origin, the region, and the farm. Single origin coffees have an objective of highlighting growing conditions within the country of origin or the region or the farm they're coming from. So this means the soil, the climate, altitude, humidity, etc. of that country, that region, or that farm. And when it comes to all of these conditions, you could easily tell the difference in the taste of a single origin coffee coming from a farm in Brazil and a single origin coffee coming from a farm in Ethiopia, because they have grown in different conditions, so the taste is gonna be different. So that's why roasters or importers choose specific coffees in a way that that coffee would highlight the region or the farm where it was grown at. Then we could move on to blends, right? And a blend is a combination of single origins with a balance of flavor in mind. What happens is coffee roasters get to taste a lot of different coffees from different countries of origin. And sometimes they taste a coffee that on its own has some qualities, but it's not really that good. So what they do is they combine different coffees from different countries of origin into a single unit, which is called a blend. And this way, the characteristics brought together as a whole bring a new thing that's much better than its individual parts. Now, most of the time, you would see blends that are specifically made for milky drinks because they provide a solid base that complements milk and its creaminess. Some blends taste good as black coffee on its own, so as an espresso blend, or you could even find a very nice tasting filter blend So there is no right or wrong way of doing this. Let's move on to the second topic of the day, and that is coffee processing methods. Coffee processing means what happens to the coffee cherries after they have been picked or harvested. Before I move into the different methods of processing coffee, I just want to briefly describe what a coffee cherry looks like. The way I imagine it, and the easiest way for me to explain it, is if you imagine a fruit, let's say a cherry, right? And then it's this red, delicious looking thing, and it has a skin on the outside, the meat of the fruit underneath the skin, and the cherry pit on the inside, in the center. That's the same with a coffee cherry as well. So you have the outside of the coffee cherry, the meat on the inside, and the actual coffee bean is not a bean, but it's a pit of that coffee cherry. Think of it this way. You have all of these coffee cherries being picked or harvested, and then something needs to happen to them, which is where the coffee processing methods begin. So we have three main coffee processing methods, and those are a washed process, a natural process, and a honey process. So the washed process is when we have the coffee cherries picked, depulped, which means the coffee pit or the coffee bean in the center is removed from the meat and the skin of the coffee cherry, and then it is washed and dried on the sun. Washed coffees have tones of citrus acidity, a very clean mouthfeel with not a lot of body to it, and overall they tend to highlight characteristics of the region where they have grown, such as I previously mentioned. We have climate, we have the soil, the altitude, and humidity, and so on. Then we move on to the next coffee processing method, which is natural. And this is where we have the coffee cherries after harvesting. The farmers don't do anything to them, so they don't depulp them, but they go straight on to drying, which means that we have the coffee cherry as it is. It's not being depulped, which means it's drying, and at the same time it's kind of fermenting and producing some natural sugars, which is why natural coffees tend to taste very sweet. But also you end up with a cup of coffee that does not leave a very clean mouthfeel. The way I imagine it to describe washed processed coffee and natural processed coffee is if you could imagine the difference between a filtered apple juice and a cloudy apple juice. The cloudy apple juice kind of tastes sweeter. It leaves an interesting body on your tongue, whereas the filtered apple juice is very crisp. You can feel the acidity of it, but it's overall a very clean mouthfeel experience. So natural coffees tend to have notes of very sweet fruits such as mangoes, berries, peach, nectarine, apricot, bananas, pineapples, fruit salads in general, jams, macerated fruits, compotes, and so on. So you get the idea that it's all of these very sweet fruits high in sugar. A good thing about the natural process when it comes to coffee is that it's very eco-friendly because it uses a lot less water than the washed processed coffees, because when it comes to washed processed coffees there is a lot of water involved. Let's move to the third processing method, which is the honey processing method. This method is kind of halfway between the washed and the natural. We have the coffee cherries, which are depulped, but after depulping them, they're not washed. So the the coffee bean is left with the meat from the cherry or the mucilage. That's what it's called. So they're left to dry on beds on the sun with a certain amount of mucilage still left on the bean. And the more mucilage there is on the bean, the sweeter the coffee tends to taste after processing. And the reason it's called a honey process is because the mucilage that's left on the coffee bean tends to become very sticky after a while, after it's been exposed on the sun and on air. And there are three different honey processing methods. We have the yellow, the red, and the black honey processing method. The easiest way to describe the difference between these is when we have the mucilage on the coffee bean and it starts oxidizing and fermenting, it goes through different stages. First, it becomes yellow. Then after it oxidizes more, it turns into red color. And then if you leave it even further, it becomes black. So it's up to the farmer and his goals for that specific coffee to stop the coffee oxidation and fermentation at a certain stage. So that's why a farmer would think that it's best to stop the fermentation when the coffee turns red, or when it turns yellow and it turns black. It all depends on the farmer, but that's how it works. So that's why we have the yellow, the red, and the black colors. The honey processing method tends to produce coffees that are both very sweet, but sometimes also can be vibrant and have citrus acidity. So, which is why it's like a combination between both worlds, both the natural and the washed processing. We also have some other experimental methods of processing coffee, such as carbonic maceration and then anaerobic processing, which is like all of those methods are pretty scientific and I don't understand them completely. But these are literally on the edge of coffee science at the moment, and the people who are implementing these methods are producing some amazing coffees, because I've had the chance to try anaerobic processed coffees and carbonic maceration coffees, and they just taste amazing. They're very sweet. They tend to produce tastes of very sweet fruits, and like it literally tastes like a fruit explosion bomb. Anyway, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something. I might have also gotten something wrong. I'm not like an expert in this field, but all I'm trying to do is just help the people who are just entering the coffee world and are starting to make coffee at home. And if you are after some coffee science, then this is definitely not the channel for you. So don't take me seriously. You know, this is all for fun. I hope you learn as much as you can. But if you want to get all scientific, you gotta find another place. Anyway, thank you. Bye. Hey, buckaroos. How'd you like that? No matter if you did or didn't, tell us what you think in the comments below. We love you either way. Check out the 2 suggested videos, subscribe to the channel, and while you're here, have a look at our social media accounts. We have some cool content over there as well. Alrighty, time to fuck out of here. Peace.